Greetings, Gumptown. Once again, you're tuned in to Gumptown TV, your premier urban media network. And today we're here with Mr. Artur Davis. He's the mayoral candidate for the city of Montgomery 2015. Once again, yes, he's running for the mayor of the city of Montgomery for this year, 2015. How you doing today, Mr. Davis?
Doing well. Good to talk to you and good to talk to the Gumptown audience.
Great, great. Now, Mr. Davis, you say that together we can make Montgomery the South's next great city. How are you going to accomplish that?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, why we have that slogan on our website and why we use it a lot during this campaign. It's meant to be aspirational. As someone who grew up in this community and has spent a majority of my life in this community, I've always been struck that we've had this interesting challenge around Montgomery. It's called complacency. A lot of people don't seem to expect very much of this city. I'll run into people who say that, well, you know, we don't really care if Montgomery passes Birmingham. We don't care about the fact that Montgomery is the only city in Alabama that's lost population. People will say to me that they're really not that troubled by the fact that we haven't landed a large, major new company in the city since Sunday 13 years ago. And there are some folks who even say to me that as long as we're not the way we were in 1975 or in 1983 in Emory Farmer, we're doing all right. And I try to make the point to people that if you want to turn your city around, it's got to start with an aspiration that your city is going to be something more than it is today. I think that Montgomery, Alabama can legitimately aspire to be the next city in the South that is known for growth, that's known for prosperity, and is known for conquering a lot of the challenges that mid-sized cities face. I see no reason that Montgomery can't do what Chattanooga has done, which is to go from being the city in Tennessee that's not Nashville or Memphis to being now one of the major high-tech clubs in America, because they decided we're going to make it quicker and easier to download a computer in Chattanooga than any place in America, including the Silicon Valley. And now that's become a big job source for them. High-tech and information technology. I see no reason why we can't do what Charleston has done, which is to go from being a sleepy city by the river to becoming a city over the last 20 years that is now known for high-tech, known for its restaurants, known for its quality of life. I see no reason why we can't do what Greenville, South Carolina is doing. Greenville was a pretty obscure city in South Carolina of about 120,000 people. And now Greenville is noted by urban planners all around the country as one of the most attractive, livable downtowns in America because they've decided to introduce green space to downtown Greenville. And I remember being there in 2007 during the presidential campaign. Greenville is a small town that's absolutely gorgeous now, but that has itself become a major hub of their economy and a real magnet for people to move there. So when I see Chattanooga, when I see Charleston, when I see Greenville, towns that are smaller than us making dramatic strides, I say that Montgomery is capable of doing that. And when we do that, we'll be the South's next great up-and-coming city.
Wow, that's great. Now, Mr. Davis, what made you decide to come back to Alabama?
Well, this is home for me. I spent the first 31 years of my life, not counting college and law school, in this city. Was born on the west side, grew up in Ridgecrest, went to Cloverdale, went to Jeff Davis. Was a federal prosecutor. The first job I had was for Judge Myron Thompson at the federal courthouse. The second job I had was helping attack crime, clean up the streets in Montgomery as a federal prosecutor. This is home for me. And I've always cared very deeply about serving this city. I used to come here a lot as a congressman to meet with business leaders and to meet with leaders in the community. Even though I didn't actually represent Montgomery as a congressman, I was always involved in what was going on here. My wife is from here. She came here to go to school and spent most of her adult life here. My mom still lives here. This has always been a place I felt connected to, a place I felt a very strong passion about. So when I made the decision to get out of politics, I did what all people have to do, try to find a job that would be well paying. And that wasn't in out of the state of Alabama, surprise, surprise. We're trying to fix that kind of problem. But when I decided the last several years that public service is something that I still think I ought to do, and that public service is a commitment that I still think I ought to render, first place I was drawn to doing that was Montgomery, Alabama. A lot of people don't realize I turned down 5 opportunities to run for political office between 2012 and 2014.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Some in Virginia, actually one in the state of Alabama. But I made a decision that at the end of the day, this is the place where I can matter. Being mayor gives you a chance to matter, gives you a chance to make a difference. You can do things as mayor that directly impact people's lives. It's not theoretical, it's not abstract. It's how do you really change these neighborhoods? How do you turn these streets around? You don't get to see the impact of your policy making and your leadership in a direct way in any other job, in any other space in politics other than being mayor of the city. So I'm excited by that opportunity. I know I can lead this community. I know I can take it places it's never been. I know I have the experience to run Montgomery, Alabama.
Well, that's great. Okay, Congressman. Now, you want the city of Montgomery to have its own school system versus a county school system. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I've made education a major priority of my campaign for a very simple reason. Our failing schools, our substandard education system is costing us jobs. It's costing us opportunity. It's costing us people. People are literally moving out of Montgomery because of our schools. Businesses are passing up Montgomery or passing on Montgomery because of our schools. If we're serious about, forget becoming the South's next great city, if we're serious about reversing our population loss the last several years, we have got to turn our schools around. Education affects everything. It affects crime. It affects every single aspect of this city. So I decided that if a mayor is going to really have a chance to tackle the problem of education in this city, a mayor's got to have accountability. Right now, as you know, we have a county school system. Well, the mayor has no role whatsoever in the school system.
Oh, wow.
I think a mayor ought to have a role in our schools. And I've looked across the United States of America at a number of communities that have gone from having unified districts that are multiple counties or countywide districts to having municipal city-based districts. What you consistently see is an improvement in test scores by the students. And what you consistently see when systems move to a city system is a decrease in spending on overhead and bureaucracy. What you also see is more accountability. I want to be able to say, as mayor of this city, I'm going to turn the schools around, and if I don't, fire me in 2019 when I'm up for re-election. A mayor can't credibly say that if a mayor doesn't have leverage over the system. So here's some of my opponents in this race who are saying, well, we want to improve education. We have all these ideas about education. Well, how would you propose carrying those ideas out in a system where you don't even have to vote or any sort of institutional responsibility whatsoever? So that's why I think the city system is important. But let me make this point. Setting up a city system, getting it approved, making it happen, getting the voters authorized as well as the State Department of Education, that is a 2-year process if we're lucky. For the first 2 years of my term, I'm going to be obviously working within the constraints of the county system. So my challenge is going to be to use the leverage of the mayor's office to somehow begin to make changes in the way we think about education. I'm going to try very hard in my first years as mayor while we're trying to explore and set up a city system. In the interim, I'm going to go to the business community and ask them and demand of them, frankly, that they come to the table and tell us what a workforce needs to look like in Montgomery, Alabama for their companies to compete. I want Hyundai to tell me, what does an 18-year-old coming out of Jeff Davis need to know to get a job at Hyundai? I want Alabama Power to tell me, what does an 18-year-old coming out of Lee need to know to get an entry-level job at Alabama Power Company, even if they don't have a college education? I want to know what our school system can do to produce the employees of the 2020s in the city of Montgomery. So I look forward, even before we have a city school system, to being very actively engaged with all sectors of this community to try to figure out how to mobilize Montgomery around education and how to move our schools forward. Last point I'll make about education is this. It is unacceptable that 3% of African American seniors in this system are college ready, according to these new test scores that we have in Alabama. 3 out of 100 African American seniors are college ready.
Oh, wow.
That's unacceptable. The 97 out of 100 who are not, we owe them a better system and a better effort to give them an opportunity to be able to compete for a degree at a 4-year college. We owe them an opportunity to do the work if they go to a 4-year college. I have professors at Alabama State and AUM tell me over and over again, biggest problem with students coming out of the Montgomery County system is they require remedial courses and they're not ready to do entry-level work at Alabama State.
Oh, wow.
And AUM. That is an indictment on our current system and the way we do things, that when our system in Montgomery sends seniors to Alabama State and AUM, they are less prepared than young people coming out of every other major system in our state. I've had teachers at Alabama State say to me that kids coming out of the Montgomery system are no better prepared than kids coming out of Wilcox County or Hale County.
Oh, wow.
That's got to change.
Well, that you made some good points, Congressman. Now, tell us about your plans to create more jobs and boost the economy here in Montgomery.
Well, you create more jobs if you come up with better schools. It can be redundant, but that's the first key to going after jobs. Businesses study cities before they decide where to go. First thing a business wants to know is obviously is there a potential consumer market for our product. Well, we're a city of over 200,000 people that has a good number of middle-class people. So, and it's actually one of the more educated cities in Alabama. So, yeah, we've got the consumer market. Second question businesses want to know is, do you have a workforce? And the more advanced and high-paying the business, the better the workforce it needs. The reason we haven't gotten a major employer that hires 800, 1,000 people and more to come to Montgomery since Sunday is not one major employer, from Golden Dragon that went to Wilcox County to the Boeing facility that thought about going to Huntsville, to all manner of other facilities that are located around the state. Not one of them have made a decision that Montgomery, Alabama has the labor force that they need. So we've got to improve our labor force quality of education. Second of all, we are going to have to be proactive about going after certain kinds of businesses. We've got to move into high tech. Chattanooga, go back to Chattanooga. Chattanooga had no claim to fame. They were literally the city in Tennessee that was neither Memphis nor Nashville. It was a city in Tennessee that couldn't sing, basically. It was all Chattanooga could say. Well, Chattanooga made a decision. We're going to do one thing really, really well. And they went after information technology. So now, you go to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and if someone sends you a photo file or a video to your Facebook page, you can download it in Chattanooga, Tennessee quicker than you can in San Jose, California, or New York City.
Oh, wow.
Because they put the infrastructure in place, and that's all it's about, infrastructure, to make themselves the fastest download, fastest gigawatt speed city in America. Well, guess what happened? That's attracted businesses to come to Chattanooga. That's given Chattanooga a claim to fame other cities don't have. Well, guess what? Huntsville is preparing to emulate Chattanooga. Mayor of Huntsville announced last year that Huntsville is going to follow the path of Chattanooga and try to become the second fastest download city in America. Why isn't Montgomery, Alabama in that conversation when we have Maxwell and Gunner? We have the infrastructure that we need and the know-how that we need, but we don't have the leadership to channel that know-how in the right direction. We've got to go after some other jobs. We're going to point to something a lot of people don't think about. Biomedical manufacturing. Literally, making biomedical products is a manufacturing work. Putting pills and tablets together has a manufacturing assembly line component. 30% of the new jobs in biomanufacturing in America are done by people with a 2-year degree or less. We think of it being people with 4 PhDs and lab coats. Actually, 30% of the new jobs in biomedicine are people with a 2-year degree or less. The average entry-level starting salary in biomedicine is $40,000 for someone with a 2-year degree or less.
Oh, wow.
It's the median income in Montgomery. So we've got to go after areas like biomedicine. We've got to go after areas like renewable energy. We're 40 minutes from Auburn. And Auburn has committed to becoming a national leader in research on renewable energy, converting biomass into energy that we can use will help our environment. It's also a new job source. When we're 35 to 40 minutes from Auburn, why have we not figured out how to partner with Auburn University to make Montgomery a hub for renewable technology? There are all kinds of things that we're leaving on the table. And I think that as mayor of this city, one of the first and foremost things I want to do is to lead the discussion about what kind of jobs Montgomery ought to be seeking. I feel like today, frankly, we're content with retail. We have a retail-driven strategy, and we do some construction downtown. So if you're in the construction business or you're in the retail business, Montgomery has developed a market for you. Well, construction and retail can only be two elements of a modern 21st century economy. If your city is only construction and it's only retail, you're determined to be a city that's behind the curve when it comes to real 21st century jobs. And we know retail doesn't pay very well in terms of jobs. All jobs are great, but retail jobs don't change people's lives. Construction jobs are tough to come by. Construction is not nearly as labor intensive as it used to be. So the reality is that if you want to really expand your labor market, you've got to go after good, high-paying jobs that are white-collar and that would motivate people to come to Montgomery.
Okay, great. Another question, Congressman. The condition of West Montgomery is still a problem that seems to be unfixed. How do you plan to resolve this problem?
We've got to change our priorities in this city. Our development in Montgomery is all in 4-block sector downtown from Dexter to the riverfront, and it's all on the east side. The city all but underwrote the Alley Station project. The city literally reimbursed the developer his entire cost of construction at Alley Station, and they pay a rent every month to the guy who owns Alley Station, who's also a big contributor to the mayor. The city is doing 20% of the cost of building the new developments out around Park Crossing, the new interstate intersection past the Middle Lane exit, where the new high school is located. This is bearing 20% of the cost. The city buys and sells land in that 4-block stretch between Dexter and the river all the time. We haven't seen any of that kind of investment on Southern Boulevard, near the airport, or in West Montgomery, or for that matter, North Montgomery, near Sheridan Heights. We haven't figured out how to leverage investment in this city to grow all of Montgomery. I'm going to be laying out a plan this week. There should be a comprehensive plan to create a better Montgomery, as I call it. One of the big elements of that plan is revitalizing the area around Hyundai and the area around the airport. A lot of abandoned space in both areas, a lot of low-income neighborhoods in that area. One way that we're going to do that is we're going to go to developers. We're going to do what 500 communities in the United States of America have done. 500 municipalities have passed ordinances that say, if you get city financing or you acquire city land, you're going to have to give back to the community by building in underserved areas. Over 500 municipalities have said, if you're doing your for-profit developing by acquiring land from the city or by getting help from the city, you've got to give back. You've got to pay some civic rent for that. Well, the civic rent that we're going to require is that any company that gets city financing for a project in a high-end area, like downtown or East Montgomery, is going to have to do a reciprocal development in West Montgomery or the Southern Boulevard. And we're going to designate a set of rebuild zones in the city. And we're going to say, these are areas that we want you to help rebuild. and we're going to use this rebuild zone strategy to do everything from clean up blight around Fairview and the Southern Boulevard to build new, nice, but affordable homes near the airport and Hyundai to reopen in some of these closed shops on the Southern Boulevard. We're going to say the civic rent for your getting city finance in Montgomery, Alabama, is you're going to help rebuild this community.
That's good. That's good. That's good, Mr. Davis. And another question. One of your platforms is regarding to government spending. Can you expound on that, please?
Well, we've got to get a handle on what we're spending in the city of Montgomery. We've got to get a handle on what we're borrowing for and how we're using our borrowing authority. Montgomery has a $228 million budget every year. And last year, last minute, Montgomery discovered it had a shortfall, so it had to make up for it by raising sanitation fees and everybody all over town. We know that we've actually had talk about raising bus fees in Montgomery. We already have one of the worst bus services, frankly, of any mid-sized city that I know of. We don't even have shelters for people to catch the bus. Buses don't even run regular service on Saturdays. I mean, people need to do the shopping and even to do work. We already have a substandard bus service. We're going to raise fees even on that. Those are budget issues. And they're budget issues because we're ultimately not spending money on the right things in Montgomery, and we're having to raise fees on things that we ought to be making more accessible. The city closed down most of its community centers. A lot of the community centers that are left in the city are either run by schools or they're run by private individuals. We've sort of gotten out of the business of running community centers the way we used to. Montgomery has to make better decisions on spending priorities, and it's going to require me looking in detail at this budget, looking in detail at our spending. But I'll tell you just a few things I'm going to change. One thing I'm going to change is instead of our throwing dollars at having a public safety bureaucracy, we're going to get rid of the public safety bureaucracy and let the police chief and fire chief run their departments. We have $150,000 a year being committed to a public safety commissioner when most cities our size simply have a police chief and a fire chief, and these are the biggest cities in America only have a police chief and fire chief. If New York City, with 8.5 million people, doesn't require a public safety commissioner, why is Montgomery with 200,000? We are going to stop some of these generous deals Montgomery is doing to finance private development for people who don't need it and who could function organically in the market that exists in East Montgomery and downtown. There are a lot of ways to rein in spending, but ultimately, when you rein in spending, what you're really doing is saying, what do we value as a city? What are we going to spend resources on? I would submit that we're undervaluing major parts of this community when we're running up transit fees on poor folks, running up sanitation fees that disproportionately impact poor people, and closing down community centers. That says to me we have the wrong set of spending priorities in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay. And one final question, Congressman. Why should the people vote for you for the next mayor of Montgomery?
If they want change, if they want someone who has experience in government, if they want someone with the energy and a specific vision to lead this community forward, I'm their guy. So I'll each one of those for a second. There are parts of this community very comfortable with the status quo. There are places in Montgomery where the biggest problem is that you have 21 lakes now in Wind Lakes instead of 23 lakes. There are places where the biggest problem in town is that the person at the private guard at the guard gate seems to nod off for a few minutes. But there are major parts of this city that have significant needs, and I encounter them all the time as I go out and talk to the neighborhoods. Those areas with needs can't possibly, in my opinion, contemplate the status quo. So they're bound to pick between the three of us in this race who are talking about real change. Now, of those candidates, I have the experience. I was in Congress for 8 years. I dealt with 45 mayors in the 7th Congressional District on a regular basis. That's how many mayors I regularly dealt with in our congressional office. I worked closely with the mayor of Birmingham, worked closely with the mayor of Tuscaloosa. For that matter, I worked with the mayor of Mobile and Bobby Brightman, who's mayor of Montgomery, and Mayor Battle up in Huntsville, for that matter. I've gotten to know what cities have to do to leverage resources. No city in Alabama has the resources based on its own tax revenues to do what it needs to do. They all have to leverage private sector investment. They all have to prospect for federal dollars. I've helped cities do that. I would know how to do it as mayor of Montgomery. I would know how to build an apparatus in the city that knows how to develop this community. I learned that being in Congress for 8 years. I also know how to bring people together. I would submit I'm the one candidate running for mayor who's campaigning in this whole city. We have the mayor who appears to only want to campaign at fundraisers and by doing controlled interviews on TV stations. And you have a couple of candidates who are either not campaigning or frankly only campaigning on one side of town. I'm the one guy who's going everywhere. When we held our campaign kickoff in this office, we had literally 100 people. I would say 50 of them were black, 50 of them were white. We ranged from very conservative Republicans to very liberal Cloverdale Democrats. We had the full spectrum of this community represented here at our campaign office. No other candidate in this race can say that. So I know, and in my work in Congress, I knew how to bring people together. When I was a Democrat, I knew how to work with Republicans to get things done. When my party was in the minority, I knew how to get Republicans to vote with me to save Hope 6, to pass a bill creating stem cell research, which helps fight sickle cell anemia. I knew how to get things done. I knew how to reopen the Farm Bill to give black farmers a second chance at justice. Lastly, I've got a very specific vision that I'm laying out. We will lay out this Thursday a comprehensive, detailed agenda on how to build a better Montgomery. We're going to be talking about everything from blight to predatory lending to rebuilding the area around Hyundai and the Southern Boulevard to making businesses pay civic rent if they're getting money from the city. That's a comprehensive accounting of what the next 5 to 6 years ought to look like in Montgomery. Nobody running for mayor is laying that kind of vision out. So I have the experience. I have a track record of getting things done. I have a vision for what this community ought to be. So I invite people to listen to all of us and ask yourself the question, which of these people do we really see knowing how to stand up there and lead Montgomery? Who do we know can go out and talk to people outside Montgomery and get them interested in the city? Who do we know has the capacity to go to businesses in Huntsville and Mobile and in the rest of the South and even in other places in the country to say, I want you to invest in my city? I would submit, people know that I know how to do those things because I've done them. No one questions I know how to do those things. I want people